Hey everybody, welcome to our April Database Security Office Hours on the Ask Tom platform. I'm your host, Richard Evans, and I don't have a photo or a video today. My camera's not working. Plus, I have this terrible sunburn. I look like a burnt raccoon, so nobody wants to see that. So I'm joined by Naja, who is our product manager of Audit Vault and Database Firewall. Thanks for joining us today. And we're going to go through some announcements and everything before we get to today's topic. But if you've not joined us before, welcome. Thanks. This is our second Wednesday of the month session, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, whatever time it is right now in your part of the world. We do announcements, upcoming events. We have a technical topic, which Nadia will cover today. And then we have some opportunity for Q&A. Hey, if we can't answer it, we can always take it offline and continue the conversation later. But thanks, welcome. And we've got, at least 5 years worth of recordings out there on the Ask Tom platform. So everything we talk about, I try to document for you on this GitHub repository, which I'll share in the Zoom chat here in a few minutes. But this kind of a little cheat sheet for you for links, for notes, for any references that we use in here, I put on our GitHub repository. Every month we talk about patching. It's really important to stay on top of patches. Our quarterly patches come out here, probably next week or so. Please stay on top of those. Not just database, but operating system, application, network, server, BIOS, everything. Whatever patch you can apply to stay current in your environment, is important to take a look at and hopefully apply to your environment. For upgrades and patching, check out Mike Dietrich DE. Mike Dietrich's blog is kind of the go-to source of information for updates and patching. One of our colleagues, Kajal, the data masking and subsetting product manager, is going to hold a webinar here next week, next Wednesday, actually. So a week from today at 9 a.m. Pacific. So Kajal and team are going to walk you through discovering, masking, and subsetting sensitive data. Enterprise Manager 24 AI is out there, and there's an updated interface for data masking. And talk about some different usability and steps for masking, discovering sensitive data, all that stuff. So please check out Kajal's Enterprise Manager Ask Tom event next Wednesday, April 16th. And if you want to get your hands on data masking and subsetting or Audit Vault and Database Firewall, which Naja will talk about today, you can go to livelabs.oracle.com and run, something like 40 different live labs out there, from understanding TLS to transparent data encryption to key management to auditing to masking to subsetting to privilege control with Database Vault or VPD. Kind of you name it, we've got a lab out there for you to kick the tires on. More than half of them you can run on our dime, so you can spin them up as a green button, and you can experiment with database security features and options. So please check it out. And Naja, I'll turn it over to you, ma'am. We'll get started with today's topic.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining today's call. As Rich said, I'm Nazia Zadi, Product Manager for Oracle Audit Vault and Database Firewall. I have my colleagues on the call in the panelists. So if you have any question related to Audit Vault and Database Firewall, this is your best chance. These are the faces behind all the work. So I have my colleagues Sachin, Mahesh, and Vijay on the call. So if you have any questions, please go ahead, keep asking questions. They will help in answering those questions, and at the end I will take more questions and we will try to address them by answering them live. Okay, so today's topic is database security posture and activity monitoring for regulatory compliance, and how AVDF can help or may help to meet you those requirements. Okay, so this is a disclaimer, and it's an important part of it because we are talking about regulatory compliance requirements. The information in this document may not be constructed or used as legal advice about the content, interpretation, or application of any law, regulation, or regulatory guideline, etc. Right? So it's this presentation is for knowledge base, so you cannot really use it against any. So you need to really go have your seek your own legal counsel to understand the applicability of any law or regulation on their processing of personal data, including through the use of any vendor's products or services. Okay, so today's agenda, now we will a little bit talk about regulatory compliance landscape, their requirement on security posture, or especially database security posture and activity monitoring. Every time we have some new attendees also coming in. So I'll give you a brief of what AVDF is, and then we will focus on how AVDF may be able to help with how AVDF can help with the regulatory requirement. We summarize everything and we'll see that how we can stay connected. Okay, so whenever you have I mean, since inception, right, when you are setting up your data center or infrastructure, and you have done some deployment, you have done some standard or hardening configuration, right? Then you start adding more users to it. You start when new users are coming in, your sensitive data is growing, or a type of sensitive data also growing. You add more applications to it. You adapt to new technologies like AI, etc. So every time when you add any user or application or new technology, your sensitive data is getting, it start growing, right? And every time you add one entity of these, you are introducing new risk. Okay, so initially you have done some standardization on the deployment, on the configuration, but the moment you start adding more stuff, your system becomes more and more vulnerable, or rather, you are adding more and more risk to the system. So that means all the time uh, you have to be active, that whatever you are doing, why you are doing, and how you can protect all those data. All regulatory compliance or data privacy laws. The purpose of these laws is to ensure the responsibility and secure use of information technology systems. Okay, protect your sensitive data and maintain the integrity of digital infrastructure. So these reasons are why regulatory compliance started coming in picture, or becoming more and more important part. We have more stringent law compared to what we used to have earlier, and every I would say law serves their own purpose, right? So, for example, data protection is more focusing on safeguarding personal data or sensitive information from any unauthorized access or breaches, etc. Whereas cybersecurity specific laws, and which has become a national strategy for most of the countries, right? Cybersecurity laws are there in every country. I would say that in or most of them. So that's more a national strategy now. And this law is more established to standardize the requirement for any organization, which can help them to maintain the confidentiality or integrity of data from any cyber attacks, right? So this way there are consumer protection laws, there are, so all the purpose mainly, I would say in summary, is to make sure there is a framework, right? Or given by government, framework given by government or regulatory bodies, which can aim to create a more safer and secured and trustworthy digital environment, right? For everybody, for customers, for vendors, for consumers, for societies. Okay, and that's where there are many new regulatory compliance started coming in or emerging, right? So this is the across the globe how different security regulatory compliance are coming in picture, right? Some are local, very specific to the country. Some are industry specific, like PCI. Some are more global, or I would say directives or standards like ISO FIPS 140, 2 or 3, right? FedRAMP. So there are more, I would say, directives or a guideline from the standard perspective, and there are some specific regulatory compliance that every country needs to comply with, which are more local, or some are like global, like GDPR, right? So GDPR came in started, and then there are many other countries started adapting something similar to GDPR, right? And those becomes a very country specific data privacy law, right? All of these. So Okay, so if you look at the compliance and regulations, each regulation, it's quite different from other, right? They may differ on the penalties and fines. They may differ on breach notification timelines. Some says within 24 hours. Some say within 72 hours. Whom to notify? Whether you need to notify the regulatory bodies, supervisors, or you need to go public or have a press conference. And there are different processes also, right? They are differ from process perspective. So in many ways, they are different, though still they have they often contain similar requirements, okay, from the requirement perspective. For example, all of them or most of them talk about data privacy and data classification, sensitive data, doing a classification of sensitive data, and protecting your sensitive data, or PI data, or health record or financial data. They all talk about wherever your sensitive data is stored, you maintain and manage your security posture. So, what is the security posture of your environment here specifically? Since we focus on database, we'll more focus on the database side security posture. Maintain secure configuration as per the standards. Have you hardened it? Have you followed the best practices? Do you have control access to sensitive data? It's like, who can have access to what, having a least privilege or need to know basis kind of a philosophy deployed. Monitoring access to sensitive data, so that's another part of it. Some of the regulation may not explicitly say that you need to audit it, but when they say that you have to report it, how you gonna report? Obviously, you need to have some way of, some visibility to report it. So monitor access to sensitive data becomes a very important aspect of it. Um, Almost all, I would say, that talk about anonymization, data masking, encrypting data at rest or in transit, and managing their keys well. So all that, they are similar when it comes to more from protecting data, right? Um, so here, since we are talking about Audit Vault and Database Firewall, so we will focus on the areas which are relevant to Audit Vault, Database Firewall. So I'll focus on top 5 ones, okay? And we will take these top 5 and we will try to understand how AVDF can help you. So if you look at this and the requirement, then you understand that security is now everyone's problem. It's not only security organization in your or a security group in your organization is their problem, right? There are citizen DBAs and developers who need to manage security at a very early stage, right? When the application is being developed or when the data is being designed, database being designed, you have to start thinking about data security and privacy issues from there itself. Um, you need to, so everyone, every layer, you need to understand the risk from hackers or even from the whether it is outsider or insiders, right? So you need to protect uh, entire fleet of data, and you need to think about how you can implement data security and privacy since the starting, right? And that's why we keep on saying that auditor can give you extension, but hackers won't. So you have to really start thinking of all those aspects. But if in reality, if you see, there are security operational issues which impact everyone. Not necessarily every team has time and the expertise on data security, right? So implementing them, defense in depth becomes very important part of it, and how easily you can implement it. So you change the mindset, you start thinking about security from the start, so that so because it's a everyone's problem. So quickly on the AVDF overview, Audit Vault and Database Firewall is a solution which focuses on database. So you start with the posture management, where you discover data, you discover sensitive data, you discover your privileged users, you even discover databases which are there in your environment, so that you start putting, so the first step, rather, in fact, you discover the databases, and then you start discovering sensitive data in the privileged users, so that you start collecting audit logs. Okay, so unless you understand what you want to protect and from whom, you won't be able to go further, right? So that's where the very first step of posture management comes in picture. Then you collect audit logs from all the sources, whether these are the native audit logs or a network-based SQLs, or even different audit logs coming from different Oracle database security solutions like Oracle Key Vault, Database Vault, or a most recent feature we introduced in 23 AI, which is SQL Firewall. And once you have visibility of your entire fleet of database, that what is happening, you can start trimming down, okay, by putting a efficient policies. So when it comes to Oracle Unified Auditing, you can manage and provision Oracle Unified Audit from AVDF console itself for the fleet of your Oracle databases. You can deploy database firewall policy either in protection mode or just in a monitoring mode. And that's for not only for Oracle, but non-Oracle databases also. Defining alerts, like on which sensitive activity you want to get notified. So in AVDF, you can have a very fine grained level of alerts definition given, so that you don't get false positives, and you don't, and your email don't get bombarded with hundreds of alerts, and you don't know where to focus. And that's the very common complaint we hear from our customers. So in AVDF, you can define alert policies at very fine grain level. You can define your definition by using up to 20 plus attributes and different conditions. And the very important aspect of regulatory compliance, whenever we talk about retention, right? How long? Because every regulatory compliance asks you to retain audit logs for certain years. Some say that 7 years, some say 5 years, some even say 15 years or 18 years, right? So you need to have a proper ILM policy define across your database fleet, so that, whenever you need any previous data for forensic, you can recover it back, give it. So so there are policies how long you can keep your audit data or online, or how much and how long you can keep archive, and then you can dispose of that data. And finally it comes a deep analysis, which is like most of the time we talk about reporting of the incident, right? So reporting of the incident happens once the incident happened and you do a post event analysis, right? So it's very important that how efficient your solution and how quickly you can slice and dice data and reach to your interest of record, right? So AVDF has a very unique capability there. I will be showing that capability to you, that how quickly you can slice and dice data and how efficient that analysis is. Okay, so from the deployment perspective, overall AVDF deployment looks like this. You have a centralized Audit Vault server repository, which is more like a centralized tamper-proof repository which can keep audit logs coming from your all database, operating system, or custom sources. So all native audit logs can go to your centralized Audit Vault repository. You can define your alerts, reports, and policies there. Database firewall component is an optional component. You may like to have it or not have it. It up to customer requirement. It up to your requirement. Most of the time, we say that you should have a combination of your native auditing of the database, because that's a sure shot of the evidence that something happened, and a lot of monitoring offloaded to database firewall, so that you have a very good visibility of in general what is happening on your database, right? And database firewall can be a first line of defense in front of your database. You can deploy database firewall in a protection mode, which prevents from any unauthorized access or a SQL injection, etc. So we'll talk a little bit about that component as well. So that's how overall Audit Vault database firewall looks like. There are different deployment model for database firewall. For Audit Vault, you have an agent installed it. For database firewall, we support Oracle database, MySQL, SQL Server, DB2, and Sybase database. However, for anything which can provide audit log in any shape and form, and if you are able to have a secure connection established with Audit Vault server, we can convert, and you can convert, let's say, in CSV or JSON, or even we provide a custom plugin like Java plugin. You can collect audit logs and send to Audit Vault server. Okay, so how AVDF can help with these regulatory requirements? We talk about, remember, top 5 ones. So what I will do, I will put discovery of database or data or privileged user and secure configuration and security posture, everything in one bucket. And in general, in industry, that term is used as a data security posture management, DSPM. Here, since we are just focusing on database, so we will talk about database security posture management. Every regulatory compliance, they basically, you will go and see that they use a term like data privacy impact assessment, right? DPIA. So you need to provide database assessment to the data privacy impact assessment, or assess risk whenever there is a change in the way data is being processed. So these are some keywords I have tried to extract it from different compliance. In general, they talk about it and try to make it in one bucket and map it with the Audit Vault. The other one, we say that control access to sensitive data, where database firewall component is helpful. Whenever the regulation which says that enforce restriction on processing or control who can access personal data, then coming to maintain audit records of data changes. Okay, so this one I have taken out and putting it as a separate pillar. The reason is many organization or many data privacy laws, they say that you need to maintain the edit log of each change made in your books of accounts or in your other places. You need to make sure that you have an edit log of each changes. Okay, and that's a very unique capability, and that's our strength also from the AVDF perspective. So in generally in this industry, that term is used before after value change reporting. So it helps you in the fraud detection if wrongly somebody updated somebody's salary or annual compensation or something like that, and the record of processing activities, right? And finally, which you said that it's a most challenging aspect of regulatory compliance, which is like monitoring access to sensitive data. So AVDF provides a very comprehensive database activity monitoring solution. We saw that whether you can collect from the native audit logs or you can monitor from the database firewall as well. So combination of that makes a very unique capability from Oracle side. Okay, because most of the similar kind of a solution, they rely on capturing through the network events. But when it comes to collecting from native audit logs, which most of the regulations ask for, it becomes a challenging task. Now they are introducing it, but it's not there, I would say, that core capability of their solution. So, yeah, monitor access to sensitive data because of many reasons, because of the evidence for forensic investigation or for the breach notification, or even to preserve audit trails, how long you need to preserve audit trails. So let's first talk about database security posture. So with AVDF, you can discover databases, data, user across. So you can, if you have one and two database, that's okay. You can go and register. But if you are talking about hundreds and thousands of database, then knowing and identifying what are your dormant databases or a rogue database, and making sure you register those discovered database so that you can avoid any security monitoring in your environment or a fleet of databases. That's what the database discovery feature gives you. So you go and do the nmap scan on your system, then upload that xml file to in AVDF. AVDF will identify all the targets which are not being monitored or registered with AVDF, and then the workflow of the registration starts. Then either you can register that target that time itself, or you can ignore it and then maybe register it later on, or you can assign it if you have a separation of duty implemented in audit vault database firewall, where you have a different audit, you have different admins for different set of targets. For example, okay, these are the targets which more focus, which are part of my GDPR compliance, or these are the targets which are part of my PCI compliance. So if you have made a grouping something like that, you have a separate admins, so you can assign admin respectively, and then they can register those targets. So this database discovery happens irrespective of what database type it is. And then comes to, why sensitive data and discovery of privileged user is important. Is important because most common cause of data breaches are compromised accounts, right? So you need to know. So unless you know, you cannot protect. That's the first thing. So knowing that where your sensitive data is stored, who are your privileged users, and what permission your privileged users have, and what data they access and how. So having all that visibility is very important. With AVDF, you can discover sensitive data across your target fleets, whether it's a PI or it's a health record, it's a financial data. You can discover those sensitive data. You can create a sets, okay, a grouping of similar sort of sensitive data, so that once you have that set created, for example, here I have created one set which is called a global set, okay, or I have created another set which is like a PCI set. So once you have those sets created, you can use those sets across AVDF, either in different policies like database firewall or alert policies, or you can use it in even the reports for slicing and dicing of data. Also, you can have a entitlement or a privilege user discovery kind of a thing, and then you can have a privilege user sets, like which user has which permission, which role are defined, even at the object level or a table level, what object level permission those users have. You can have even those reports, right? So you can assess your um, user status, that what complete analysis, that what permission roles they have, and at what object, etc. And you can create privileged user sets, and that also can be used across policies and reports. Then then it comes to the security assessment of your fleet of target fleet. This focusing on Oracle databases specifically. So when we are talking about, again, hundreds and thousands of databases, the question comes in mind that, is my database configured securely? Am I following a best practice? Am I compliant with my company's or organization security standards? And what else I can do to further strengthen my database? That's where security assessment for Oracle database functionality of AVDF comes in picture. Right now, we support only for Oracle, but going forward, we may expand this functionalities for other non-Oracle targets as well. So at risk level, we assess your Oracle database, and it's a very comprehensive assessment, right? There are there are there are 10-15 categories where we distribute in each category. We distribute the risk levels as well. We give you a very clear picture of what are high risk, medium, and low risk. These are coming from either Oracle database best practice document, or STIG standards, or CIS standards, and we map them. We recommend to you what changes you can make. You can define a baseline as well, right? So you can define a baseline, and once you have a baseline, then your periodic assessment, you can have a drift security control also. So this very first, so let's go back to the previous one. So this one shows more a dashboard where you have how many targets being assessed, not assessed, what are the different risk level across your targets, what are the findings, and in different risk categories, right? Then this is more, you have a baseline created, and then your periodic assessment, you are comparing with your drift, with your baseline. And this is a very good picture, right? It says that across your Oracle database targets, what are the Oracle database security features that you are using? Okay, so that gives you a picture whether, the very first picture, that whether are you hardened enough from the database? Are your databases hardened enough, or are they using all the security functionalities that Oracle database provides? Okay, so if I look at, okay, there are unified auditing enabled on some of my targets. Traditional auditing, we are going away. That's a good sign, because we are not supporting traditional auditing from 23 AI onwards. So yeah, targets are moving more to the unified audit in your organization. So that's a good sign. Okay, I'm using database vault for 2 targets, and oh, but there is no encryption I'm using, right? I'm not, I have registered 4 targets, but there is no table space or column level encryption, which is not a good sign. So it gives you a complete visibility of specifically Oracle database security features that you are using. Then it gives you a detailed fleet-wide drift, okay, on your security controls. So for example, per target, you basically assess against your baseline. So there is a latest summary and there is your baseline, there is a baseline severity, and there's a latest severity, right? So for example, for my target finance, you had for first one, you have more users now connected, which directly or indirectly granted highly sensitive DBA role via 4 grants. So you still in evaluate category, you need to go and see whether this is what your business needs or you can do something else. However, in my baseline, I had like 10 unlocked user accounts with default passwords. But in my list, so when I saw my baseline assessment, I went ahead and fixed that issue. And now in my latest summary, it is coming as I don't have any unlocked user account which are using default passwords. So that test in my latest severity is passed. However, previously it was under high risk. Similarly, for other target, for example, your risk level hasn't changed from your previous to new assessment, and there are more users are getting added without any password verification function, so your risk level remains same. However, in my baseline, you had update and delete statement can be used to infer data values, whereas here it's been blocked. So in your latest severity is being passed, which is a good sign. So you get a very detailed picture as well, and a bird's eye view as well, right? So we also provide a sort of a comparison graph at the dashboard itself, where you can see that if there is a baseline defined, then you can see a baseline, the latest assessment that been done, and what is the drift. Okay. So if your baseline had under, let's say, high risk, you have a higher bar, and then in your latest you are going down, which is a good sign, right? So you can compare it and then click and go on the detailed report. Then it comes to your database firewall, where we are talking about enforcing restrictions. So database firewall, it detects anomaly and threat and block from any unauthorized access. We do not rely on any regulation expression kind of conditions which can be easily bypassed. We rely, so we have a patented SQL grammar engine which understands the SQLs thoroughly. You can create your allow list of SQL from your application. If anything doesn't fall under your allow list, you can block it. What else you can do is that you can create a different global sets, okay, across your session context, in like IP address, set of IP address, my application server IP address, my local IP address, other, different sets, and then use those global sets across database firewall policies. Database firewall policy enforcement is like a multi-stage policy enforcement. So there is a order of execution. So you can, when the SQL comes, you extract all the session context. If you can define rule basis on session context or SQL statement or even database object or command class. And if something SQL, if it doesn't get true in any of these conditions, it goes to the default rule. And here, let's say you can have a rule that, okay, you block if all these conditions are not being met, then you block. Okay. So that's way you can protect any unknown or unauthorized access to the database, including SQL injection. Then before after value change reporting, it's very simple, straightforward, where you basically capture the old value and the new value both. A lot of regulators are asking for these report for some of the critical activities. It's very unique capability in Oracle AVDF, because most of the other parallel solution, they do it basis on the trigger, which is not a very efficient way of doing it. It causes a performance issues and sometimes even crashing the database itself. So AVDF uses Golden Gate internally to capture the change data records, and we support not only Oracle but SQL Server and MySQL also for before after value. And then finally it comes monitor access to sensitive data, which is one of the important aspect of yours that you want to address. So Oracle user activity monitoring tool is very strong. We have a powerful interactive reporting for rapid analysis. We have dozens of out-of-the-box reports. You can detect data exfiltration. You can have a before-after value report, which is being asked by regulators. You have out-of-the-box compliance reports. Those are the standard reports that usually regulators ask for when it comes to database activities. And you can have a fleet-wide audit inside also. So I have an example. Let's sometime which is example of quickly slicing and dicing data, right? So if you have thousands of records, how quickly you can reach to some of those records where you need to really focus. So I have example. Let's try to find out. There are sensitive data changes being done by an application user, not through the application. So it's bypassed the application, and it did a update with the direct connection, which is like every organization asks that you control any update through the direct connection, right? So let's say this is your activity reports. There are multiple reports under that, and we will go to just our standard all activity report, right? So where all the activities are being captured. So you will see there are 16,000 plus records are there. What I want to know, so very first thing I will do slice is that I will slice on my sensitive objects, right? And since it is a set, it's much easier for me to slicing that data. Okay, so I'll slice on sensitive object set. So all the activities done on my sensitive object set will be displayed here. Then I'm interested in my application user, not my DBAs. Okay, so on my sensitive set, there are some activities done by application users. Let's filter by that. Then I'm interested, application user has done any update, not through application, but through direct connection. SQL Plus is important one in my client program. I will slice basis on SQL Plus, and then finally, okay, selection is fine, but I'm more interested in update. So you will go and filter by update. Now you see from 16,000 plus record, you reach to 7 records, right? All the filter conditions are there on the top. You can check and check. You can do further analysis, slicing, dicing, and you have all the records which are being updated by my application user by bypassing the application and updated my sensitive data. So now you can specifically go to each record and see what's been updated, and then you can make a call. Or if you want to have a policy, let's say alert policy on this condition, going forward, if any such activity happens by my application user, I want to get alerted. What you can do, you can just simply go and click on this button and you say that create as alert policy, right? So entire this condition will be copied into your alert policy definition, and you will have an alert generated whenever this kind of activity will happen in your system. So this is as simple as it is, right? And then there are compliance driven reports, all the standards ones like GDPR, PCI. So you might not comply with GDPR, but they are similar to that. So they focus on sensitive data, access to sensitive data, activity on sensitive data, etc. And the activity on sensitive data by privileged user. You can schedule these reports. You can have a generated report as well. Data exfiltration. So if so many rows are being returned by any user and you want to get alerted, you can do that. You can do slicing or dicing of activity here as well. So data exfiltration attempts are another important part. So where you basically monitor the return number of rows from your select SQL statements. So you can do that. Audit insight, when you have hundreds of target registered and millions of events generated, you don't know where to focus today, right? So this is your dashboard, Audit Insight dashboard, where you can focus on your top fives, your top five target, your top five user today, your top five privilege user today, top five DMLs, DDLs running in your system. So it's more like an enterprise class reporting, which gives you a very summarized view of how your state looking today, right? And then you can go and you can slice dice data easily, so it reduces noise and you can just focus on top activities every day. And finally, we summarize it. So from the database security posture management, DSPM, AVDF can help you to discover database data, privilege user, do the security assessment, and monitor activities across your fleet. So that's a DSPM functionality. And along with all that functionality we talk about, you can have AVDF deploy either on premise or on cloud, and you can monitor targets whether they are on premise or on cloud. So our key differentiator, we are best for Oracle on Oracle, definitely. Our reporting is much more comprehensive compared to anybody else when it comes to the Oracle targets specifically. Many of you might be using a good percentage of Oracle database for their most critical data. So that's where your problem gets resolved. We support Oracle databases anywhere. We are scalable and very secure repository. So AVS itself uses Oracle database and all the enterprise level of database security features of Oracle database within its repository. So it's much more secured and scalable. It's a very simplified, structured, easy to deploy, unlike competition where there are multiple options, choose this, choose that, multi-layer of deployment, which is much more complex. Operational day-to-day operation task becomes very complex in that sense. We do not produce any false positives because we do not rely on signatures or regular expressions, etc. So there is no 0 day or signature not matching, and then you are getting a lot of false positives. So that's not the case. You create your allow list, what you already know is authorized on your system, and anything else can be get blocked. And we are non-invasive, unlike any other solution which use agent to capture the network event, but they sit at the memory level, and sometimes they causes a crashing of the database itself. So our agent is non-invasive agent, so we do not really do any reverse engineering on the database memory level. Okay, so whatever I have talked about, what is the call to action? So go ahead and try AVDF LiveLabs. So all these functionalities you can try by yourself. Everything is free. Either you can choose something we call green button, which the solution is running on Oracle Sandbox. So it is available for, let's say, some time for 2 hours or so. You can request for extension as well. Sometimes they extend for a couple of more hours, and you can go and step by step you do the lab and you explore the solution. However, if you have a OCI tenancy, you can go and download the stack file and deploy on your own tenancy, and then go through all those tasks and lab whenever you have time, and you experience AVDF before you make your decision or before you apply a new RU, before you start using new functionality. For outreach, I run AVDF Cafe the way Rich does it for database security. I do Cafe for APAC EMEA. There are announcement blogs, so you can even look at them. And that's my email ID. And you can contact me for any question you have.